Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Jai Nitilila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Privrajakacharya Ashtottara Shada Shri Srimad Bhaya Charanaраvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nitilila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Privrajakacharya Ashtottara Shada Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nitilila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Srila Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitilila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Vaishnava Sarvabhaum Om Vishnupada Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai Jai Nitilila Pravishna Om Vishnupada Vaishnava Sarvabhaum Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Vaishnav Guru Varga Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Nittai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol All glory assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glory assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glory assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So, we're reading today from Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 4, Text 25. Kritva samana vanilaujitasana Sodanam uthyapya chanabhichakrataha Shanair hृदि स्थाप्य धियो रसि स्थितम् कंठाद्भ्रुवोर्मध्यम् अनिन्दितानयत् कृत्वा समानवनिलौजितासना Sodanam uthyapya chanabhichakrataha Shanair hृदि स्थाप्य धियो रसि स्थितम् कंठाद्भ्रुवोर्मध्यम् अनिन्दितानयत् Kritva samana vanilaujitasana Sodanam uthyapya chanabhichakrataha Shanair hृदि स्थाप्य धियो रसि स्थितम् कंठाद्भ्रुवोर्मध्यम् अनिन्दितानयत् Kritva samana vanilaujitasana Sonanamuthyapya chanabhichakrataha Shanair hृदि स्थाप्य धियो रसि स्थितम् Kantad Prabhurmadhyam Aniditanayat. Kritva Samana Vanilojitasana. Sodanamuthyapya chanabhichakrataha. Shanai hridisthapya dhiro yasi stitam. Kantad bhruvor madhyam aniditanayat. Kritva samana vanilojitasana. Sodanamutthapya chanabhichakrataha. Shanai hridisthapya dhiyo rasi stitam. Kantad bhruvor madhyam aniditanayat. Kritva samana vanilojitasana. Sodanamuthyapya chanabhichakrataha. Shanai hridisthapya hidiro yasi stitam. Kantad bhruvor madhyam aninditanayat. Kritva samana vanilojitasana. Sodanamuthyapya chanabhichakrataha. Shanai hridisthapya dhiyo rasi stitam. Kantad bhruvor madhyam aninditanayat. Kritva samana vanilojitasana. Sodanamuthyapya chanabhichakrataha. Shanai hridisthapya dhiyo rasi stitam. Kantad bhruvor madhyam aniditanayat. Kritva, after placing. Samano, in equilibrium. Anilo, the prana and apana airs. Jita asana, having controlled the sitting posture. Sa, sati, udanam, the life air. Uthapya, raising. Cha, and nabhi, chakrataha, at the circle in the navel. Shanaihi, gradually. Hriddhi, in the heart. Sthapya, placing. Dhiya, with the intelligence. Urasi, towards the pulmonary passage. Sthitam, having been placed. Kantat, through the throat. Bhruvoho, off the eyebrows. Madhyam, to the middle. Anindita, the blameless. Sati, anayat, raised. Translation. First of all, she sat in the required sitting posture, and then she carried the life air upwards and placed it in the position of equilibrium near the navel. Then she raised her life air, mixed with intelligence, to the heart, and then gradually towards the pulmonary passage, and from there to between her eyebrows. Purport. The yogic process is to control the air passing within the body in different places called Shat Chakra, the 6 circles of air circulation. The air is raised from the abdomen to the navel, from the navel to the heart to the throat to between the eyebrows, and from between the eyebrows to the top of the cerebrum. That is the sum and substance of practicing yoga. Before practicing the real yoga system, one has to practice the sitting postures, because this helps in the breathing exercises which control the airs going upwards and downwards. This is a great technique which one has to practice to attain the highest perfectional stage of yoga. But such practice is not meant for this age. No one in this age can attain the perfectional stage of such yoga. But people indulge in practicing sitting postures, which is more or less a gymnastic process. By such bodily gymnastics, one may develop good circulation and may therefore keep one's body fit. But if one simply restricts oneself to that gymnastic process, one cannot attain the highest perfectional stage. The yoga process, as described in the Keshava Shruti, prescribes how one can control his living force according to his desire and transmigrate from one body to another or from one place to another. In other words, yoga practice is not meant to keep the body fit. Any transcendental process of spiritual realization automatically helps one to keep the body fit, for it is the spirit soul that keeps the body always fresh. As soon as the spirit soul is out of the body, the material body immediately begins to decompose. Any spiritual process keeps the body fit without separate endeavor. But if one takes it that the ultimate aim of yoga is to maintain the body, then he is mistaken. The real perfection of yoga is elevation of the soul to a higher position, or the liberation of the soul from material entanglement. Some yogis try to elevate the soul to higher planetary systems, where the standard of life is different from that of this planet, and where the material comforts, lifespan, and other facilities for self-realization are greater. And some yogis endeavor to elevate the soul to the spiritual world, the spiritual Vaikuntha planets. The bhakti yoga process directly elevates the soul to the spiritual planets, where life is eternally blissful and full of knowledge. Therefore, bhakti yoga is considered to be the greatest of all yoga systems. And once again, the translation. First of all, she sat in the required sitting posture, and then she carried the life air upwards and placed it in the position of equilibrium near the navel. Then she raised her life air, mixed with intelligence, to the heart, and then gradually towards the pulmonary passage, and from there to between her eyebrows. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Soyam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam tam sajivam sadvaitam savadhutam parijana sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goratishe Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are discussing today the continuing pastimes again of Sati, and now we're getting to her preparations for her dramatic actions, we can say. She's building up to all of that. When I was reading this purport, I was reminded once, I was speaking to my Shiksha Guru, and I was telling him, Prabhu, I feel a little bit sometimes I feel a little bit disturbed by thoughts. Sometimes I'm a little bit, I feel my sadhana is getting disturbed by my mind. My mind is being my enemy, right? And so, I was saying this sort of thought and that sort of thought, all the sort of things that, you waste your Shiksha Guru's time with, and then you think afterwards, why did I say all that nonsense? I should have asked to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, but instead I'm just venting like an angsty teenager. But anyways, Prabhu is very merciful. He still tolerated my rascaldom, and he gave me an interesting answer. I was expecting him to tell me, it's all right, Prabhu. But instead he said, Prabhu, every morning before you chant your rounds, learn how to do pranayama. And then I said, okay. He said, your mind is your enemy, conquer your mind. And then I thought, okay, thank you. And then afterwards, Prabhu, he said something very nice. He said, do you know anyone who can teach you pranayama? And I said, oh yeah, there's a few devotees. And then he said, make sure they don't teach you anything else, just pranayama. He said, if they start teaching you some asanas or something, you say, oh, Hare Krishna, I have to go somewhere. He said, don't get distracted. Just calm your mind, chant your rounds, don't do anything else. Your life is too short. So I was reminded of this, because this is actually our mood. Actually, another time, I remember I was speaking and I told Prabhu how I was taking up the study of Sanskrit. And then he said, take up the study of Sanskrit, but only if you're studying the names of the Lord. He said, the moment you're studying anything else, then your study is useless. So, in this way, we see the endeavor of the devotee, or even those aspiring to become devotees. This endeavor is always targeted towards what Srila Prabhupada says right here, which is the goal of attaining the destination and the fruits of the Bhakti Yoga path. This is all that we should seek for, and this is all that we should see in the descriptions of the Bhagavatam, right? This is all that we should see. We should see the indications, the hints towards bhakti. Once I heard, I've said this a few times, but I always really liked this answer I heard. One devotee was once asked, in the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, we see, it seems to say that the sun is going around the earth, right? And then this devotee is saying, but sometimes there's an understanding that the earth is going around the sun. The heliocentric and geocentric models, that's what they'll say, right? Geo for the earth in the center and helio for the sun in the center, right? And so he said, what should we understand from Shastra, from the 5th canto of Bhagavatam? What should we understand? Is it heliocentric or is it geocentric? And he said, if you are reading the Bhagavatam and you are thinking, is it this planet or that planet that is the center of the universe, you've misunderstood the Bhagavatam. The point of the 5th canto is that Krishna is the center of the universe, right? Heliocentrism or geocentrism, it is Krishna-centricism. Both are wrong. And when we see the descriptions of the 5th canto, we should accept them. They are Shabda Praman. They are the authorities of the Bhagavatam. But we should understand what point are they trying to make. If we are taking away some secondary conclusion, we have not studied Bhagavatam. So in this way, we should see all of the things that are described. They're described only insofar as they give us value on the bhakti path. And so we see people there engaged in so many different forms of so-called yoga to become very healthy. I heard once from one sannyasi, and Maharaj was saying that when we see this yoga process that is practiced in the yoga studios and all of these other places, we should understand that to call that yoga is like if somebody were to go into a kitchen, wash all of the pots, and then say, I've cooked a feast, right? All of these asanas and all, they're there for a purpose, right? But if we simply do them on their own, we have only wasted our time. And so this is the true yoga system, which is, of course, the Bhakti Yoga system. Now, today is unless my Vaishnav calendar is wrong, is the disappearance day of Ishvara Puri. Pujyapad Shri Ishvara Puri, our esteemed Acharya in our Gauriya Vaishnav Guru Varga. And when I was reflecting on this, it's rather interesting. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, when we hear the narrations of how Mahaprabhu had some interaction with Ishvara Puri, some things approximating these themes, they arise. Because, of course, as we know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he meets Ishvara Puri in which city? In Gaya, right? And of course, Gaya it's in Bihar, right? And it's very famous. These days, Bihar struggles somewhat economically in India, but in ancient India, Bihar was a real opulent place. Today it is still opulent for the speaking of Krishna Katha that happens there. But in terms of material opulence, it was a real hub of learning. They'd say it was the real shelter of knowledge at the time, one of the real central places of learning. And so there are a few philosophical traditions that are very predominant there, right? So Mahaprabhu, he went there. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he writes that the reason why Mahaprabhu went to Gaya is he actually could have taken initiation from Ishwarapuri when Ishwarapuri came to Navadvip, which we will discuss a little more about later, right? But what Srila Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada describes is he says that Mahaprabhu went to Gaya because there was the real heart of Buddhist philosophy. Actually, we see when there was a lot of Buddhist revivalism that was happening in the recent decades, it became a big area of funding. Lots of Buddhist organizations, they were spending money to rebuild big temples there. There's that one, now I'm forgetting, the Mahabodhi temple, I think they call it, and huge. And in fact, there used to not be much pilgrimage there, but they restarted doing this massive Buddhist pilgrimage to Gaya now. You'll see people will go, Buddhists all around the world, they'll go on pilgrimage. This is only a recent thing, but it was there to try and reclaim the Buddhist heritage. Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he says, wherever there's Buddhism, there was once very strong karma kanda. Because of course Buddhism has arisen to counteract the abuses of karma kanda. This karma kanda philosophy, well, not karma kanda philosophy, this karma kanda section of the Vedic literatures is abused by many of the karma kandis, who are only seeing a shallow layer of the flowery words of the Vedas. So in this way, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because of course, at this point, he has not yet manifested his pastimes of bhakti. And again, I'll come back to that later, but it's very sweet. We see the descriptions that all the devotees in Navadvip, they would complain. They would say, oh, this Nimai Pandit, he is so effulgent, so beautiful. He has no love for Krishna. They'll say, well, you know, he's wasting his life, right? He's just sitting around doing all of these pointless things. We'll pray he becomes a devotee one day. Like this, they would all behave. So, at this point, Nimai Pandit, of course, he had not yet really manifested these things. And yet, nevertheless, he decides to go there. Because when he begins to manifest this, who will he preach bhakti for? In order to erase away all of the philosophical deviations. Actually, this is what's said. So going to Gaya is very good because all of these different philosophies are present there. And so Mahaprabhu would go there in order to establish the understanding of Shuddha Bhakti. Actually, Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he says, forget about Buddhist philosophy. There was Charvakas and all of these other ideas as well. We might know Charvaka philosophy is like atheism. Right? We know there's the different pramanas, right? Shabda, Anuman, Pratyaksha. They rejected everything but Pratyaksha. Only what I see is real. They rejected reincarnation, rejected the soul. There's one text, and it's not blasphemous for me to say because Baladev Vidyabhushan, he quotes it. So if he can repeat it, if he says it's fine to repeat it, then in the mood of understanding this is bogus philosophy. But they have this one shloka, and it really threw me off when I read it because it's written like a shloka, you know. I sort of wanted to go da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da when I read it. But what it was saying was the realm of Shiva, Shiva Lok, is a lie created by greedy Brahmins who simply wanted to steal your food. This is their philosophy, right? And of course we can see these philosophies, we can maybe blame the philosophers who've come up with them, and we should, right? But also we can see a lot of these philosophies, they arise because of abuses of Vedic culture. So we can't be perhaps too unempathetic, right? So this Charvaka philosophy was very popular. Buddhist philosophy is very popular. And your best case scenario, there was some Karmakandi who was trying really hard to attain the heavenly planets, as Srila Prabhupada writes here. The one benefit, I think, of not being exposed too much to Vedic culture anymore is Karma Kanda really seems absurd to us. We have that one blessing, right? No, very few of us are reading Bhagavatam and attempted, oh, maybe I will go to Indralok, right? We thankfully have been saved from that sanskar, right? So anyways, in this way, Mahaprabhu, he's going to Gaya. And of course, he's manifesting this pastime because at this point he has to perform the shrad for his father, right? And this again is emphasizing this point. Srila Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada is not pulling out this condemnation of karma kanda from nowhere. Mahaprabhu, he is observing the necessary ritual activities for a person who is performing all of these karma kanda activities. And so his father has manifested the pastime of passing away. And so Mahaprabhu, he tells his mother, okay, I will go now to Gaya, right? And I will go in order to perform all of the necessary ritual activities. And so, after performing the Shrad ceremony, he leaves. And as he goes through, it's described in Chaitanya Bhagavata, his lotus feet would turn all of the places into tirthas. So all the places that are dhams, all the places that are holy, Mahaprabhu would visit them, and they would become holy, right, by the presence of the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu. Now the lotus feet are a very central part of this pastime. Because, well, as we know, Mahaprabhu, he will go and he'll see the Vishnupad Mandir, and he will have darshan of the lotus feet of the Lord. But even more so, what's interesting is it becomes a recurring theme throughout the whole pastime. First, Mahaprabhu's feet walking to Gaya, right? And purifying wherever he walks, right? And then as we know, then Mahaprabhu, as he's walking, he has a fever, right? Manifests the pastime of a fever. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada says, we should be very careful not to say that Mahaprabhu had a fever. Not that we risk becoming like the Sahajiyas. We'll say, oh yeah, Mahaprabhu, he appeared in some human body. I mean, we'll hear this all the time. You go on the Sunday feast and you'll mix around with people and you'll hear people say, yes, the Supreme Lord appeared in the human body of Krishna. Hare Krishna. We'll hear all of this sort of, whatever, hogwash. So, anyways, we'll hear all of that being passed around. But Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he says it is the responsibility of the Vaishnavas to make sure people do not think this. We should not fall into this trap of saying Mahaprabhu, he became sick. No, Mahaprabhu, he manifested the pastime of sickness. Once we've clarified that, then we can speak the pastime as it goes. So then, of course, Mahaprabhu, he says, I'm having this fever, I'm having this sickness, and all the disciples of Mahaprabhu, they become very worried. Oh, what should we do? What has happened to our great Nimai Pandit, right? And he says, only the water which has washed the lotus feet of the Brahmanas will cure this. And what's interesting is we see the purport of this is twofold. It rejects both extremes of the responses to the abuses of, again, the contemporary Brahmana. Now, it might seem like I'm picking on Brahmanas, but Prabhupada doesn't. Prabhupada actually writes, the Kali Yuga begins because the Brahmins go from being in their sattvic mode, ego enters into their heart, and then they fall down. So this is the defining nature of Kali Yuga. But there are two responses. One response is, oh yes, whatever abuses they do is fine. And just let them do, right? This has been rejected by acharyas. The other response is to do away with the Brahmins altogether, which is also an abuse of the Brahminical system. And so we see here Mahaprabhu, he is taking a middle path. He wants the water from the lotus feet of the pure Vaishnav Brahmin. And he's making the point. Not that we should reject the glories of the Brahmins, but also not that we should just endorse any person who claims this position. So in this way, Mahaprabhu, he says this and then he honors this. But also we see here, again, there is a lot of consciousness about Varnashram. There's a lot of consciousness about these things in Nimai Pandit's heart. Or rather, in the pastime. So in this way, Mahaprabhu, he enters into Gaya. And what he does, the first moment he enters in, he pays his dandavat pranams, right? He gives full obeisances to this holy land. And we should understand that here we are seeing already the beginnings of Mahaprabhu's mood of service towards the Vaishnavas. Because what does it mean to give obeisances to the Dham? Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he says that actually, when one is paying obeisances to the Dham, they are doing service to the Vaishnavas. And actually, Mahaprabhu doing this was him manifesting his Bhakta Vatsala mood. Why? Because what makes the Dham? The Dham is only the Dham because of the presence of the sadhus inside it. So to pay respect to the Dham means to pay respect to the sadhu. And if we are truly paying respect to the Dham, then we have paid respect to the sadhu. And if we go into Mayapur and festival season, and we go into the temple room, and we think, oh, there's too many people in here, I am disturbed, I am bothered, then we have wasted our ability to honor the Dham. The glory of the Dham is that so many sadhus are there to relish the chanting of the holy name. I always think about this, and again, there's a point I often make. But I remember once in lockdown, I was hearing one devotee say, I love it during the lockdowns because the temple room is empty and I can just be peaceful inside. I thought, with all due respect to this Vaishnava, I do not think this is our Siddhanta. I do not think this is our philosophy. In fact, the greatest day that we can be in the temple is in Janmashtami, where you can barely stand on one toe, right? The temple room is completely full. And you are able to appreciate that the Supreme Lord, that Sri Sri Radha Gopinath, are having the opportunity to gaze upon all of their devotees present before them, right? This is the best day to be in the temple room. To somehow, sometimes we say, oh, it smells, but this is the transcendental sweat of the Vaishnava, right? We have such a mundane view, actually, of the devotees. I was thinking about this in my Bhakti Shastri. I was sharing one quote from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He's written these wonderful commentaries on the Upadeshamrita. So I was sharing one quote, and in it, Thakur Bhaktivinoda, he says that Rupa Prabhu has said, and then he quotes Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right? Rupa Prabhu has said, and I remember in the class, some people got a little bit disturbed. How can we call Rupa Goswami Rupa Prabhu? How can we say this? I thought this was really interesting, because actually Prabhu, forget about being a title of the Vaishnav, is also a title of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I thought this was so interesting. Our view of the Vaishnavas is so low that when we use the word Prabhu, rather than it making us think of the Vaishnavas as greater, we think of the word Prabhu as lower. The word Prabhu becomes demoted, right? We actually have such a low view of the Vaishnavas, not to be heavy, but sometimes we actually have such a low view that now Prabhu becomes an insult, right? Prabhu is an insult. Oh, he's just Prabhu. This seems to be the attitude, right? People become shocked. Oh, Rupa Prabhu, how can you say? Oh, I thought we're calling the other Vaishnavas our worshipful Lord. I thought that's why we're saying Prabhu. And now we're offended that we're calling Rupa Goswami Prabhu. I thought it's an unfortunate fact, right? Prabhu has become an insult. What does that mean? What does that reflect about our attitude towards the Vaishnavas? So anyways, in this way, we see this is what it means to observe the Dham. So many people, they'll go, I lost my heart in Vrindavan. And they'll say, that Mataji just annoys me so much. That Prabhu annoys me so much. That is not love for Vrindavan. Anyways, that's my heavy point of the day. So, we see in this way, Mahaprabhu, he is observing true acknowledgement of the Dham when he's entering into Gaya. And so he does his obeisances, and then he goes, and he enters into the temple. And I've written down here, on my phone, I've written down this wonderful quote from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada in glorification of this Vishnupad temple, where one can gaze upon the lotus feet of the Lord. Actually, it's described when Mahaprabhu saw them. In the same way that a temple has a dome upon it, in the same way there were so many garlands upon the lotus feet of the Lord that it was like they had their own dome there. And so Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he says, the voidism of the Buddhists and the impersonalism of the Panchopasakas are buried under these lotus feet of Gadadhar. So it's a very wonderful description, right? Because this is Mahaprabhu's meditation. Because at this point, Mahaprabhu, he begins to cry. And at this point, we begin to see, for the first time in Mahaprabhu's pastimes, he is tasting and manifesting his bhakti marg pastimes, right? The rules of logic, of nyaya, will not do it anymore for him, right? Now Mahaprabhu, he is manifesting this. And what is his meditation? It's described, his meditation is, here is the very form of the feet of the Lord, right? That's why sometimes, people are hesitant to castigate and lambast this impersonalistic philosophy. And we should be sensitive to people's sensibilities. I don't think we should, scare people away. But we also shouldn't be afraid of realizing that Mahaprabhu's bhakti pastimes are born in a context of the subjugation of impersonalistic philosophy. Bhakti is born from this. We cannot expect somebody to embrace bhakti without first having these misconceptions pulled away. So we see this in Mahaprabhu's pastimes, and he's relishing these lotus feet of the Lord, right? And he was hearing all the glories from all of the brahmanas who are worshipping these lotus feet. And hearing all of these glories, he becomes more ecstatic, right? And it's described, we know, all of the standard ecstatic symptoms that we now get so used to hearing from Mahaprabhu, but this is the first time he's manifesting them, right? His hair is standing on end, right? He begins to shiver. Tears are flowing constantly, right? And so we see here, Mahaprabhu, he is relishing this. He is relishing the form of the Lord. And so in this way, what happens is all of the brahmanas, seeing this, they're thinking, what's going on here? Why is this person crying, right? Puja is meant to be boring. Puja, we are meant to be bored here. We are meant to be reciting the Vedic literature and then going home and hoping to become Indra one day. Why is this person crying, right? And so in this way, they become very confused and they become very agitated, right? And so, at this point, as is the organization of the Lord, at this point, Ishvara Puri, he appears, right? And Ishvara Puri, when he appears, instantly he sees Mahaprabhu. And when he sees Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu offers obeisances to him. When Mahaprabhu offers obeisances, Ishvara Puri, he embraces him. I remember once I was with one of my friends in Mayapur, and my friend, he was doing some service for the GBC. And because of that, he had some personal interaction with His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. And I remember we were walking one time in the night. And the night in Mayapur, it can get foggy and, you can't see where you're going, right? And so we were walking, and we were seeing one devotee, and when you're in Sydney and you see someone with a bead bag, you go, "Hari Bol," right? You're very excited, right? In Mayapur, it's one of the people in Mayapur, right? So we kept on walking. We were chanting our rounds, and as we got close, because of the smog, or what would you say, the mist, the fog, that's the word. Because of the fog, we couldn't see, and there's some shadow, and Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. We kept on going. As we got closer, we were right maybe 2 meters away when we realized, this is Radhanath Maharaj. So instantly I dropped down. I'm doing dandavats. And my friend, he was a little bit in front of me, right? He does dandavats. But before he can hit the ground, Radhanath Maharaj, he went down and he caught him by the arms and he just gave him a hug, right? I saw there, I thought, wow, the Vaishnava humility. This is the, so wonderful, right? So in a similar way, Ishvara Puri, he reciprocates, seeing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, of course, my friend is perhaps not on the level of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but still, I was more speaking on the Ishvara Puri side of things. So in this way, we see this, the mercy of the Guru, right? And so he goes down and he's embracing Mahaprabhu, and they soak each other with tears. In this way, they're crying and weeping over each other. And of course, Mahaprabhu, he then says, "My journey to Gaya, it has become successful the moment I was able to see your lotus feet." That's what Mahaprabhu says. All of these things about, performing some ritual activities. Mahaprabhu, he's doing this pastime only to instruct us something about karma kanda. But actually in his heart, he only has the desire to meet Ishvara Puri. That is the only desire he has. And then he makes a very wonderful glorification. He says, meeting Ishvara Puri is greater than going to the Dham. Because he says, if one offers oblations to the forefathers in a holy place, then the forefathers are delivered. But one delivers only he to whom the oblation was offered. By seeing you, however, millions of forefathers are immediately freed from material bondage. Therefore, holy places are not equal to you, for you purify even the holy places. So we hear sometimes the sadhu is as great as the holy place. This is not Mahaprabhu's conception. Mahaprabhu's conception is that the sadhu is greater than the holy place, right? Therefore, again, sometimes devotees, they'll say, I'm stuck here. I can't go to the Dham. And they're not thinking there's so many sadhus here, visiting here, who they can have darshan of, and they can receive that mercy. Of course, we should visit the Dham. Prabhupada wanted us to visit the Dham. But we should also not enter into some idea that, if I see my Guru, in the Dham, then he's more special. When he's outside the Dham, then he's just normal Guru Maharaj. But when I'm on Parikrama, then he's Guru Maharaj, Guru Maharaj. Then he is really bona fide. This is a very offensive mindset, right? We can subtly have it in our heart. Only on Parikrama, then he is my spiritual master. Then he is Sakshadhari. Otherwise, he is, a nice kirtan. This is actually a very offensive mindset, but it can creep into our hearts. So Mahaprabhu is glorifying this way. Now it's interesting, this description. Many forefathers will be delivered. We know Prahlad Maharaj has a similar thing when he asked Narasimhadev for the boon. My Guru Maharaj, he says, we should not think that this means simply, clap your hands, Goloka Vrindavan for all of the forefathers. Actually, one devotee I know, one youth, their sibling is a brahmachari, right? And I remember they told me, I don't chant my rounds. My sibling is going to be a great devotee. So then, all of the generations of the family will be liberated and I'll be one of those generations. But my Guru Maharaj, he says, what this means is that all of these generations of forefathers will have the association of the Vaishnavas in their next birth. They will have the opportunity to cultivate bhakti. And because the association of the sadhu is equal to liberation, in that sense, they've attained salvation. So it is not a lie, it is not an exaggeration, but again, we should understand the glories of the Vaishnavas. They are given the opportunity to associate with the Vaishnavas, and because they are given that opportunity, that is how this is fulfilled. There is no one who doesn't have complete and total 100% Shuddha Bhakti for the Lord who will attain his association. Right? Sometimes you will hear, will Krishna be that harsh? Will Krishna be that harsh? Maybe I have a tiny bit of desires, I can't go back home, back to Godhead. That is not Krishna's harshness, that is Krishna's mercy. If you don't want to go there, you won't go there. And when you want to go there, then you will go there. So not that there's a corner in Vaikuntha where you have all of these karmakandi forefathers who are thinking, I really, really would like to do some yagyas right now, right? In the corner of Vaikuntha, who didn't actually want to be there. Instead, they are giving the opportunity to associate with the Vaishnavas. And in this way, they are all promised liberation. So, in this way, we see Mahaprabhu, he is giving such a wonderful, wonderful description and glorification of Guru Tattva. And then we see Ishvara Puri. What does he reply? Bole na Ishwar Puri, shuno ho Pundit, tumi je Ishwar Ongsho, janinu nishchit. Right? He says, I know for sure that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, why does he say that? What sort of response is this? Because back, Ishvara Puri, who is he thinking about? Who is Ishvara Puri's mind absorbed in? Well, Krishna, right? The Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he is always meditating on Krishna. But it's described that ever since he saw Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit, in Navadvip, ever since he saw him that time ago, all he has been thinking about is Mahaprabhu. And so he's thinking, my mind is always thinking about Krishna. Now it is always thinking about Mahaprabhu, right? Then surely this Mahaprabhu, he must be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Again, this is not a test that we can apply on some Sahajiya platform if somebody is thinking, I'm always thinking of Krishna, and then they think of, whatever rascal is saying, give me $10 million because I'm Krishna again, right? And then you're always thinking about them. Well, that is not the case. One has to be on the level of devotion of Ishvara Puri for such a pramana to be the case. But if one is on the level of Ishvara Puri, then such a pramana is very powerful. We see the same thing with Thakur Haridas. Thakur Haridas, what is he chanting his whole life? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. What attachment Haridas Thakur has to the holy name, we will not be able to understand. It's so fantastic in the Antya Leela of Haridas Thakur. How did the devotees know something was wrong with Thakur Haridas? He wasn't chanting as much as he normally does, right? How much attachment to the holy name one has to have for that to be the case. But what name does Thakur Haridas chant as he concludes his pastime? The name of Gauranga, right? There again, if somebody is so attached to the name of Krishna, but they choose to spend the conclusion of their pastime chanting Gauranga, then Gauranga must be Krishna. There's no two ways about it. And in the same way with Ishvara Puri, if somebody is so absorbed in meditation of Krishna, and now they are only meditating on Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu must be Krishna. And so in this way, Ishvara Puri, he is glorifying Mahaprabhu. And he's saying, ever since then, I've simply been thinking about you. And we know this pastime, Nimai Pandit, he's walking around He's at this point, he is not manifesting his bhakti pastimes, right? And he's there with his beautiful form, right? And everyone would always be relishing this form, right? Vishvambhar would be there. Actually, it's described that the books of philosophy that Mahaprabhu would carry were actually the incarnation of Saraswati. Saraswati, she came and she incarnated as Nimai Pandit's books as he would walk around in his scholarly debates. Because we'd see at this point, even though apparently there is nothing transcendental going on, it's all these Nyaya debates, internally all the devotees, they have arrived, right? They've all come there. Especially, we know, Mukunda, Srivas, all of these associates of Mahaprabhu, they have appeared. But Yoga Maya has covered their eyes. They are unable to see for the sake of the pastime, right? And so we know very famously, Mahaprabhu sometimes, he would walk up to the devotees and they would run away. Janasanga. They would say, he's just going to talk Prajalpa. He's going to ask us about some logical argument. Better we don't. This is an interesting point. Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he makes this point, right? We should think how important is Sadhu Sangha if even the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be avoided when he's speaking Prajalpa. Of course, we should think of this in terms of the Leela. Actually, we would be so fortunate to speak Nyaya philosophy with Nimai Pandit. But in the form of the pastime, we are seeing how important it is to avoid Prajalpa of all types. There's an interesting phenomenon I've noticed. Oh yeah, it's Prajalpa if we talk about the news. But if we talk about the Indian news, that is transcendental. Oh no, it's Prajalpa to talk about all of these logical proofs for the existence of God. Oh, but if it's a Nyaya proof, now I can talk about it. Right? Again, if it's Vedic or if it's not Vedic, it is useless if it is not serving the lotus feet of Gopinath. And we see this in the pastimes of these associates, right? Mukunda once, he ran away. He saw Mahaprabhu from a distance, and he thought, I need to run. The pastimes of the Lord are so sweet, actually. This is such a great personality, and he's seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the exact self-same Lord, right? And he's saying, I need to run for the hills, right? He runs away. Nimai Pandit, he turns around. Now I'm forgetting who it was. Govinda, I think, but a different Govinda. There's so many Govindas in Gaur Leela, you get mixed up. I think this Govinda was a blacksmith or something. I can't remember. Anyway, so he turns around to Govinda and he tells him, why did Mukunda run away like this? What's gone wrong? And Govinda said, maybe he had some other arrangement. And then Mahaprabhu, his svabhav is coming out, his instructive personality is coming out, and he said, no. It is because Mukunda, he has only read the Vaishnav literatures, and I have only read the literature of Vedic philosophy. And so he knows when I will speak, I will not speak Harikatha, and so he has run away. And then he says, this is very glorious. And then Mahaprabhu, this is spoken just before Ishvarapuri appears. And so we can see Mahaprabhu here, he's hinting what's about to come, right? Because when Ishvarapuri appears, the bhakti pastimes, they start churning, and then eventually Mahaprabhu, he does this and that, all of these other pastimes happen. Jagannath Mishra, of course, passes away, and then the initiation happens. So this is really the beginning of the end of Nimai Pandit's academic career. So, in this way, Mahaprabhu, he sees Mukunda running away, and what does he say? He says, but one day even Shiva and Brahma, right, they will be honoring the bhakti that is here. And of course we see this, right? Shiva comes in the form of Advaita Acharya, and Brahma comes in the form of Haridas Thakur. So this is fulfilled. This is not some arrogant declaration. This is simply a declaration of the truth, right? So in this way we see this is how all the Vaishnavas are interacting. And then Ishvarapuri, he appears, right? He turns up, and it's rather interesting. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, it's described. I'm cognizant of the time, so I'm cutting down the pastime. It's described that actually he appears disguised. This is interesting. What disguise was he wearing? Does anyone know what was his disguise? He was dressed as a sannyasi. That is actually what is described. Because he is not a sannyasi, right? He is a Vaishnav. And this is the point that is made. All of this dress of, Vaishnav, Ekadanda, all of these things, they are a disguise. The true identity of Ishvarapuri is that he is a devotee and a Vaishnav. So actually, he wasn't wearing anything different. But still, our acharyas feel the need to say this was a disguise. let us not think that Ishvara Puri is some sannyasi roaming around talking about Vedanta. That is the mask. The true heart to Ishvara Puri is what Mahaprabhu relishes. And then, of course, we will run out of time, so I won't go through the whole pastime. But as we know, then Mahaprabhu, he invites this great personality into his house, and all the devotees are very relishing. Especially, it's described Ishvara Puri had a strong love for Gadadhar Pandit. And so in this way, they would discuss, and we know famously, Ishvara Puri asked for his poetry to be assessed by Mahaprabhu. This is a very famous pastime, right? And then Mahaprabhu, he hears it, and he sees, he hears this request, and he says, I cannot do this, right? Pandits might say Vishnave, and non-pandits might say Vishnaya, right? We know. Vishnave Namaha, right? But people, they will think, otherwise we say Keshavaya, Narayanaya, right? Like that we will say, right? But the Pandit knows that the Sanskrit rule is that it's Vishnave in this example, right? But he says either one are equally glorious when spoken by the devotee. On this point, I don't want to tangent too much, but I do think it's interesting. Sometimes we see people, they get very agitated and they get upset when we see devotees of Western backgrounds say things like, Ratha Yatra and Tulsi and things like this. And sometimes people get really upset, like this is some aberration. And yes, we should try to pronounce Sanskrit well. My Sanskrit pronunciation is perfect. I try my best, right? But sometimes people get really agitated and they feel the need that this must be corrected. And of course, if somebody's under somebody's shelter, then these things should be corrected. But actually, we shouldn't be agitated when hearing these things. We should be relishing, that a devotee has spoken it for this principle altogether. But also, we should think this is the glory of Srila Prabhupada, right? The people who will say Ratha Yatra, they're saying Ratha Yatra, right? That people are saying this word in this way, right? This is the glory of Prabhupada. We should actually think this is his magnanimity, right? We are here able to relish the fantastic work, right, that Srila Prabhupada has performed. So I was just thinking of this point when I was reflecting on the Vishnaya point. So anyways, in this way, ever since this point, Mahaprabhu, Ishvara Puri, their hearts are connected. And so now we are coming back to Gaya, and Ishvara Puri, he says, I just have been thinking about you this whole time. And so what is interesting is at this point, does anyone know what Mahaprabhu does? Mahaprabhu leaves Ishvara Puri and performs karmakanda activities. It's very interesting, right? Mahaprabhu, he goes to all of these different places, and still you see his bhakti is there. He goes to where Ramchandra, all that time ago, performed his Shraddh ceremony, and he performs it there. There we see his identity as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. He goes to where Yudhishthir performed his Shraddh ceremony, and he goes there out of affection for the Vaishnavas. So we see here again, Mahaprabhu, he's going to these different locations, expressing his mood and personality, right? But, and perhaps this is the central point why I was speaking this pastime, besides the day of today, I think it's relevant to this purport. The reason why he has done this, right, is to show and to demonstrate that since, and I've written this quote down because I thought it was very well composed, right? Since, as everything Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada has written, it is very well composed, right? Since materially conditioned living entities are not self-realized or God-realized before hearing topics of the Lord, they take to fruitive activities such as offering oblations to their forefathers and the demigods according to external considerations. So Mahaprabhu, in his pastimes, he is demonstrating this principle, that until one has accepted shelter of the Vaishnav Guru, until one has heard Hari Katha in this submissive mood, of course, Mahaprabhu, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is already relishing all of these things, right? But in terms of the pastime, he is demonstrating that until one has received shelter, they will be misguided into all of these different ideas. This is why it is so important that Srila Prabhupada, in his purports, he is so explicitly telling us this, right? Sometimes it can seem heavy, it can seem intense, but we are hearing Hari Katha from the Vaishnavacharya, right? When we are engaging with Prabhupada's purports. And so this principle that Mahaprabhu, he is demonstrating in his pastimes, right? That until one has taken the shelter, they will do things like this, cry tears of ecstasy, sing Ishvara Puri, and then go and, svaha, right? Perform some ritualistic activities. So we see this. And we see a further principle. We could go on, but I won't I am cognizant of the time. I have a few minutes to wrap up. So what we see then, of course, we know very famously, Mahaprabhu, he takes initiation. And who does he take initiation from? He takes initiation from this Ishvara Puri. And he receives Gopal mantra. He receives a mantra, some 10-syllable mantra, right? And then he goes on and he's very ecstatic. Very famously, he says, I've become a pagol, right? I've become crazy, a madman with this mantra. And then, of course, Ishvara Puri says, oh, this is good. That means you're chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, right? Of course, later on, Ishvara Puri, he will conclude his pastimes. And that is the one point I just want to quickly mention in relevance to the disappearance day. What I've mentioned here is relevant to the purport, and this is also relevant to the purport. But after he disappears, one of his servants is sent, right? One of his disciples is sent. And this disciple comes to Mahaprabhu, right? And this disciple comes and he says, my spiritual master, Ishvara Puri, he told me I should come and I should worship and serve Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At this point, of course, Mahaprabhu, he is not doing some Nyaya pastimes. Full-fledged Mahaprabhu, right? And so, at this point, he goes to speak. And Mahaprabhu, he has one dilemma. His dilemma is, how can I accept the service of my god brother, right? And then, of course, then it is resolved, because the idea is that the instruction of the spiritual master is greater than any other principle of etiquette. So if Ishvara Puri has desired this, then he should accept this service. But Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya, the great Brahmin, right? He has his own dilemma, right? And his dilemma is, this individual was a Shudra, right? A Shudra by birth. And so he's thinking, how could this be the case? How could it be the case that he has received Diksha? Right? He has received initiation. He's a Shudra. How can this be the case? And then there is a very, very lovely response that is given by Mahaprabhu. He says, Ishwar hoy param shotantro, right? Ishwar Puri, he is completely independent, right? Ishwarer kripa nohe ved porotantro, right? His mercy is not regulated by any Vedic rules or regulations. This is what Mahaprabhu says, right? And we can see here, what is the elevated position of Ishvara Puri that is being revealed here, right? He is so high that he is not bound by these things. And we can see this in relation to the purport, because when one is truly on the bhakti platform, right, on the heights of that bhakti platform, then all of these regulations, all of these ideas, they are fulfilled simply in the existence of this great sadhu. We see the same thing with Srila Prabhupada. You read Prabhupada Leelamrita, every time you turn the page, Prabhupada has violated some Vedic rule. Right? Each page, Prabhupada has done something so scandalous that if you were to show it to some Paka Karmakandi, they would probably, become Indra immediately, right? They would pass away and go off to the heavenly planets, right? Prabhupada, what is he doing? He's taking the Brahminical thread off of his disciples, right? He's crossing the ocean. He's giving Gayatri, not only to, forget about Shudras, to complete mlechas, right, by Vedic calculation. Also to women, right? This was not traditionally done, to give Brahma Gayatri. Other Gayatris were given, but Brahma Gayatri, this was normally not given, right? But Srila Prabhupada, he is carrying on this line of pure bhakti, of Shuddha bhakti from Ishvara Puri. So, this is one thing that I think the disappearance pastimes of Ishvara Puri reveal, right? They're showing to us that one who is on that bhakti platform, they can move and they can adapt. And actually, and I will wrap up on this point, I promise, I'm taking everyone's time, but we see this. We are all very ecstatic. 150 years of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, right? And we see this so much in the pastimes of Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. How many innovations he introduced. But all of these innovations were the completion and perfection of Vedic rules and regulations, right? Some people will see he's doing so many radical things, but he is also, just as Ishvara Puri is, he is Svatantra. He is independent because he is embodying all of those rules and regulations. And so our line of our great acharyas are all of these Svatantra, Shuddha Bhakti acharyas, who are there, who are giving, again as Prabhupada has said here, the fullness of this bhakti yoga process in a way that is transcending any other process and is giving us what? Full knowledge, full life, but most importantly, full bliss in the spiritual world. Anyways, I've gone so much over time. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. गौर भक्त वृंद की नमो विष्णु पदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय पुतले श्रीमती राधा गोविंद प्रभुपति देवी गौरवाणी